One, I could have been like, oh my God, freaking out. I didn't have the chat on. Oh my gosh, all these people, I told them to answer questions. I look so stupid. Like, I can't believe it. They probably thought this. They probably no, everybody stayed on. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Sue. I'm the host of the Life and Business Podcast, where we help you to live life well by doing business better. And on today's podcast, I want to talk to you guys about this amazing concept that I use like every single day for my daily goals, my weekly goals, monthly and yearly goals. And this concept, when you understand how to do it correctly, you just don't get stuck up on the challenges that come as you're on your way towards the goal. And here's what I mean. Oftentimes we'll set a goal. We'll even have this amazing, perfect plan. We'll have this strategy, this thing mapped out step by step. We will begin to take steps towards it. But then something happens, which then we'll say like, oh man, I should have seen that coming. Or we'll say things like, this always happens. My kids always get sick. My XYZ always happens. Whatever it is, something always happens in our lives that stops us from reaching our goals. And this is how you will really identify if you are really growing as what I would say like an entrepreneur or not, is if you're able to solve for these problems before they ever arise. And that's where I got this concept of like guaranteeing your results and honestly create like inevitable success. That's what I would call it. Inevitable success. It's because anytime I think about a goal, I think about not only how do I get there, but the most important question is, I wonder what would stop me from reaching that goal, or even what has stopped me in the past from starting, continuing, or completing that goal. I'll give you guys an example, okay? I'll give you guys an example of never starting, and then I'll give you guys an example of having tried and then not really doing it well. So an example of this is fitness. I am 34 years old. I just do not work out. And before I had kids, I would work out a couple times a week. But once I had kids, I was like, I just do not. At first, I was like, I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. Now I have the time and the energy for the past couple of years. Now what I'm telling myself, the lie that I'm telling myself is, I don't need to work out. Which, I mean, it has some truths to it. But I'm just like, I don't need to work out. So I haven't worked out. But the past 6 months, I've been realizing, maybe I need to work out now. Maybe I need to start working out. And so for me, it's the mindset that has been stopping me from working out, believing that I don't need to work out. But here's the thing. It was so funny because I was playing tag with my daughter. She just turned 10 and she beat me in tag. And I was like, I'm way faster than her. I ran cross country. I ran track. I'm just so, and I'm also a full grown adult. I was like, I'm so much faster than her. But the only reason why she won was because of stamina. That was the moment where I was like, I cannot let my 10-year-old beat me at tag. Not because I can't lose, but because I want to, in 5 years, 10 years, they want to play games. I want to be able to play with them. I don't want to be like, sorry guys, I have no energy. Sorry, I'm too slow because I don't work out. Sorry, I'm not flexible enough. I can't do that with you. That's why I want to work out now. For years, I did not have a reason to work out because I didn't need to work out. And now my reasoning is because I want to be able to do all the things that I want to do with my kids if I wanted to do them, right? Roller skate. I hurt my knee last year, the first time I roller skated in a decade, and I hurt my knee. I don't know what happened, but I hurt my knee really bad, and it was so hard to walk for so long. And so it just makes me think about, right? So this is an example of like not creating inevitable success. I would just be like, yeah, I kind of want to work out, but I don't need to work out, and I don't really want to work out. So I just never did. Okay. Another example of us not reaching our goals is like last year, I set this very vague goal of like, I want to do more date nights because that sounds amazing. But I wasn't specific at all. So I think we went on like maybe 2 dates, maybe 3. But what I will tell you is I don't remember any of them. I don't remember any of them. So we could have went on 0. But I think we went on like 1 or 2, maybe 3. But you see how like I didn't solve for the problems. And so I look back and, for example, the marriage and going on dates, I look back, I reflected on 2024. And I decided, you know what, in 2025, I still want to try this goal again. But this time, I'm going to take a look at what stopped us from actually going. One of the things that stopped us was inconsistent babysitting schedules. Like we didn't really have somebody who was like available enough for when we were available. So this year, what I decided to do was I'm going to reach out to my friends who also have multiple kids, who also want to go on date nights every week. And I'm going to like create a consistent schedule with them. So I made a decision, I set a goal, and I took action. That's the most important thing. Make a decision, set a goal, take action. Take action on your dreams, on your goals. I first learned this concept from Tony Robbins. You never want to leave the sight of a decision, a goal, without taking action. So all I did was I texted him. I was like, hey, here's our goal. We want to go on weekly date nights. Let me know if you guys are up for a conversation. I'd love to explore the option of us watching your kids for a few hours and you guys go out, and then you guys watch our kids for a few hours and we go out. Let's figure that out. So this week we're going to have a conversation about that, right? And so it's like I'm going to remove any roadblocks that are going to stop me, okay? And here's another example of what I did to inevitably create my success is this year, a big goal of mine was to memorize scripture. And I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do one scripture card every single day until I memorize that one scripture. And then we'll go to the second one and the third one. And so I figured, you know what, I could probably do one scripture a week. Like I could probably memorize one scripture a week. That's a realistic but also stretching goal. And so I took a look and I asked, what would stop me from actually doing this? Okay. It's not time. I'm like, I have plenty of time. It's not commitment. I can be committed to goals. But when I really dove deep, it was, I don't want to have to look up and research 52 best or right scriptures to memorize. I was like, I just don't want to do that. Like my brain is resistant to that for some reason. So then I solved for that. I was like, I'm just going to go buy some scripture cards. So I went on some website that they sell like cards and notebooks and journals. And I just bought like 5 different packs of scripture cards. And so it all came up to 52 cards, which was like one per week. I was like, perfect, done. It came in the mail. I have it set up on my desk for every single night, or my little reading, journaling, and praying corner. And I was like, every single night, I'm just going to look at that scripture. Okay. That's it. And so the inevitable success comes from when you decide to guarantee your own success. I knew that if I already had those cards and I don't have to waste any mental capacity thinking about what scriptures to memorize, I don't have to write them out. I don't have to print them. I just have the cards. I just pick one out and memorize that. That is going to guarantee that I do it. And now the only thing left to do, there's no other roadblocks except for taking the action. Now it's just about taking the action. I think we're 6 days in, and I think I've missed one day of looking at the scripture, but I feel like I have it memorized. Maybe not, maybe halfway. And it's so simple, but like, and I think I don't have it memorized mainly because I'm switching it to like God is talking to me versus the scripture. But I believe it's like Exodus 33:14, right? May his peace be with you and may he give you rest. And I think that actually is it. I don't know what version that is. That's just what it said on the scripture card. I just think about when you are trying to reach a goal, you want to answer for the problems that are going to inevitably come up. Another example of this can be thinking about your business goals, right? And you're like, okay, I'm going to do this class or I'm going to have this meeting, but the kids always get sick or the babysitter doesn't come on time, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, how are you going to solve for that, right? And so now, for example, it's like in December, we're just all sick all the time. I lost my voice for like a week and a half. And here's the thing, it's like, I just don't go into scarcity mindset. For me, that's the biggest thing that I can do to guarantee my results, to guarantee my success, is to not step into scarcity mindset. I'm going to do a whole nother podcast on that because here's the thing. I lost my voice. I couldn't do coaching calls. I could have easily been like, oh my God, they're going to all quit because I can't talk and I'm canceling their call for this week and I have to reschedule it, right? And I had consultations. I could have been like, oh my God, like I'm not going to make I'm going to make $0 because I have to rebook my consultation calls because I'm sick and I can't talk or I don't have the babysitter. You can't do that. But for me, I'm like, I'm just going to solve for this. Great. You know what? I'm going to reschedule it. I'm going to give her some other options. And I know and I have the belief that she's not going to want to leave just because I'm sick. Because guess what? The level of how I show up for myself, the level of care I show for myself That's how my clients, even potential clients, are going to see their business. They're going to be like, oh, that's not a problem for her in her business. It doesn't have to be a problem for me and my business either. That's the purpose of guaranteeing your results, is solving those problems ahead of time. And it's not just solving those problems ahead of time with tangible things like buying scripture cards, but it's also solving them ahead of time with your mind. What's going to happen if my kids get sick, if I get sick, and if I can't take coaching calls for the next week? What am I going to do? How am I going to show up for my clients? That week when I couldn't show up for my clients, I still text them on Friday. I sent them all messages and say, hey, what support do you need from me this week? Because I can still text and I can still email. I might be like whispering, but I can still coach you via text and or email before the weekend comes, right? It's like I get to over deliver even when something doesn't go according to plan. For example, if my kids get sick, I just did like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour masterclass. And you can kind of tell my voice, like I was kind of getting sick, kind of not. I was kind of losing my voice, kind of not. I feel like today it's kind of coming back. But still, I was like, even if I lost my voice, here's what I would do. I would just use my mic and I would talk really close. And if I had to whisper into the mic, then I would do that. And if it didn't work out for some reason for the masterclass and it was still too low, even if we turned up the volume and people could still not hear me, then guess what? I could still reschedule, and I knew for a fact that people would still come onto the masterclass because they find it so valuable. 2.5 hours in, the masterclass, like technically it ended about an hour and a half in. People stayed an extra hour. Like 50% of the people, actually, I want to say I would say 90% of the people that came stayed an extra hour. An extra hour after the masterclass. That means they found so much value. They're like, I want to keep listening. I want to keep hearing. Like, what else is she going to say? What more does she have? Right? And it's just like that kind of belief allows you to show up mindset wise and tangibly wise to solve for it. Another example that I want to have here about managing your mind to solve for the success and create inevitable success was on the masterclass. I was telling people to put things like answer questions in the chat. But this was my first time using a webinar, I usually just do like a Zoom room, but this was the first time I did a webinar to where I was screen sharing and doing the webinar. And so I didn't realize that the chat was off. I don't know why it would be off, but apparently the settings were off. And so I was telling people to put things in the chat, and it wasn't until an hour and a half in that I did the Q&A portion, and I said, all right, put your questions in the Q&A, and I looked at the Q&A, and everybody said, oh, the chat's disabled this whole time. And that's fine. That wasn't a problem. You see how that was my first thought? Managing your mind. That's how you guarantee your success. Managing your mind in that moment. I literally said it as an example on the masterclass. On the masterclass, if I saw the chat was disabled, here's what I could have done. 2 things, okay? 1, I could have been like, oh my God, freaking out. I didn't have the chat on. Oh my gosh, all these people, I told them to answer questions. I look so stupid. Like, I can't believe it. They probably thought this. No, everybody stayed on. Everybody stayed on, even though I kept telling them to put their answers in the chat. Like, everybody still stayed on, even though the chat was not working and the chat was disabled. Even then. But again, I could have been freaking out and been like, oh my God, they're going to judge me. They're not going to want to work with me. Like, I suck and I don't know how to do tech and I don't know how to Zoom. Like, what are they going to think about me? That would have been so self-focused. I would have been focused on me. But the first thing I thought was, that's not a problem. Keep putting your questions into the Q&A box. That's it. Let's keep moving forward. Let's answer your questions, right? So when you're able to manage your mind, you create your own success because you're not going to let this hinder you. It's not going to be a roadblock. It's not going to stop you. You're just going to keep moving forward. And internally, I made a note. And I was like, okay, next time I'm going to check the settings and see why the chat was turned off. And maybe, you know what? I don't even need the chat next time. It's not a problem. Obviously, it showed me that I don't need to have the chat on. People are still wanting to listen and watch and engage. And they're still on the masterclass. An hour and a half in, all of them are still on. And then 90% of the people were still on an hour and a half later or an hour later. So they were on the masterclass for about 2.5 hours, I believe, right? Because they wanted more value. And again, tying it back to like inevitable success and guaranteeing your success. One, you want to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, what would stop me from taking action? What would stop me from creating this result? Why would I not go for it right now and solve for all of those problems? What if your kids get sick? What if you lose your voice? What if a client cancels a contract early? What are you going to do about that? Are you going to sulk and are you going to be like, I'm not good at coaching, or somebody leaves you a bad review. Oh my gosh, my product must suck. It's like, is that how you want to be? Is that what is going to help you get to your next level? Or do you just want to evaluate and get better and better? Okay. And so as we end this podcast, I just really want to encourage you guys to guarantee your own success. And another way, actually, this last tip, guarantee your own success by the way you show up. That's really what this whole conversation has been about, is like, how will you show up in spite of everything? When you join a coaching program, when you buy a course, when you do invest in anything, how will you show up to get the most value out of what you are giving in? Whether that's your time investment or your financial investment. How will you guarantee that you succeed and you get the value, the return on the investment that you have come for? That's what I think about, like, when anytime I'm going into an investment, I just think about, I'm going to get everything that I can out of this investment. I'm going to ask all the questions. I'm going to be so coachable. I'm going to soak in everything that I need. I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room. I want to be the dumbest person in the room. I want to ask every single question. And so as you go on your way for 2025 and you're setting these big dreams and creating these big goals, I want you to just ask yourself, how can you guarantee your own success? How can you create inevitable success in 2025? You are invited to book a complimentary consultation call where we dive into all of this, defining what your vision for your life looks like, what your vision for your business looks like. And then we talk about the actual strategy and the roadmap that we would go through to help you begin to create this life and create this business so that you can create a life that you love and the business that is supporting it all.